Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about all of the various ways that you can communicate between components in Angular. We're going to talk about using input and output in a parent and child component relationship. And we're also going to talk about communicating via a service in which any component can really communicate with each other. So I'll show that with a brother and sister component within a parent and child relationship as well. And then I will also talk about referencing both in the template as well as in the component. So that's a direct reference to a child component and referencing a variable within that child component, both in the template, and we can also do that in the component using viewChild. So let's get into each of those methods. Let's start with the parent-child relationship using input and output. So in the child component, we are going to have an input, which is a variable that's being passed from a parent component. In this case, it's just a simple string. And then we can also have an output in which we use an event emitter. And then we can have a function in the parent component that can receive those events from the child component. So let's just test it out and see what it looks like. So if we go to the parent component and we say, hello there, we can see that the parent input is also being provided down here, as well as in this text box. And then if we want to communicate from the child back to the parent, this is done via the event emitter, and we'll signal that event with this button here. So we'll say hello back, and then send that back to the parent. And we can see that we received the message from the child. So you notice that the parent input is bidirectionally binded. So we can say, hello there, child, and it updates in real time. So because it is actually binded, the child information, we have to have a mechanism for emitting the result. So in this case, we're using the button to do that. So when we reference the child input in the parent component, that's essentially going to look like this. So we have our parent input. Here's our input text. We have this bidirectionally binded to a variable input here, just so that we can see that string in the component as well. And we have that then binded to the parent input that is going into the child component. So when we want to use an input for a component, let's look at that child input. So we have parent input. We can actually, so I could have just passed, a string in there, and then it would be this string, right? Input text. But what I want is for it to be binded to the input text variable that's in our parent component. So that's why I'm using the brackets there, because that's going to bind that. And then for the receiving of a message from the child, we're basically, for the output, we can bind a method to that output. So let's look at the child here. We have the child output, and that's the event emitter string. And the button here is going to invoke send message, right? So the button is right here. We're going to invoke send message on the click, and then we're going to emit that message. So the message here is bidirectionally binded to our input. So that's why the message variable is going to update whenever we change the input text. And then when we send the message, that's going to be received through our method here, which is the onMessageReceived. So when that message is invoked, effectively from the child component, we can then set that message to a variable here. And we can display that received message, we can bind to it in this paragraph text. So that's effectively how the parent to child input and output works. That's pretty much explained everything that needs explaining there. So hello there, hello back. And there we go. There's the received message. So the next form of communication we're going to go over is communication through a service. So let's see what this looks like. I have a brother and a sister component. And let's say from the brother, I say, hello, everyone, from brother. Submit that, and then you can see it says son said, hello, everywhere from brother. And then in the sister component, it says brother said, hello, everyone from brother. Okay, let's look at the sister component. We'll say hello from sister, and we'll submit that. And then we can see daughter said, hello from sister. And then the brother, we can see it says hello from sister, sister said. So each component kind of knows what the relationship is to the other component when we submit this through the service. So let's take a look at what we have going on here. So we have a service, and so what we're doing is we're creating a subject and an observable. And the reason why we're doing this is that I can create these functions called brother speak, sister speak, which each component can have a reference to the instance of this UI service, and then invoke this particular method, and then it's going to send that message to the observable as the next value. So anything that's subscribing to that observable is then going to be notified that there's a new message. So that's what this UI service looks like. So let's go into each component. And then we can see that we have an observable in the parent component. We have an observable for the brother message as well as the sister message here. And we also just have that ngIf so that if there is no message, then it doesn't display anything. So this observable, we are just going to set it equal to the observable in our UI service. So that way we can just set this to be asynchronous, and that brother message variable right here is going to update asynchronously with the brother message observable so that it is always up to date. So if I change this now and say, hello again from brother, and submit it, it's going to update that observable, and then that's going to be reflected in these asynchronous divs here. So if we look at let's just go ahead and look at the sister component. So similarly, we have the brother message observable, which we're just setting equal to that UI service. And just like in the parent template, we are, asynchronously, subscribing to that brother message, and then we are setting the value in that brother set block. So that's why it's being updated just like the parent component is being updated, but with the brother set. So let's look at what we're doing with the communication from the sister component with that submit button. So we have the input text right here, which we have binded to an input variable right here. And then when we hit that on click button, all we are doing is we have that UI service, and then we're gonna invoke that method to update that observable within the UI service. So that's with that sister speak function. So we pass the new message here, and then we just basically update the observable with the next value. So that's how we do communication through a service. And if you want to see both of those combined, check out this example right here where I have, all of those forms of communication at once. So you can say, hello child, we got parent to child. And then if I want to go child to parent, I can say hello parent, send that to parent. And then if I want to have the brother component, hello from brother, this is utilizing the service. And then we can see that it says hello from brother. Brother said hello from brother. So both of those forms of communication, we have the input and output, and then we also have utilization of a service. Okay, so I'm going to show two more forms of communication. One is just by reference within a template. This obviously works pretty well for strings. It might not get you too far, with more complex, variables or mechanisms. So what I'm doing here is I have a similar setup to the parent and child, right? I have the app child, except I'm not going to use the input and output. So this time I'm just going to create a reference here with that hashtag child1. And then now, let's look at the child component. We can see that we have that message variable and it's essentially public. So anything that has a reference to the child component can, just directly reference that message variable. So that's what I'm going to do up here, where I just say, hey, child1 message. I just want to see what that message is. So basically in real time, hello parent. We're just outputting that message. And if I needed to pass it into some other component, I could do that as well, just by that reference to the hashtag. Now, let's say I wanted to be able to see that message within the TypeScript component. It's similar to that reference, except now I need to actually grab the instance of that app child within my parent component. So we can do that in this next example with view child. So the same thing, I have that child1 hashtag, and instead of directly referencing child1.message, here I'm going to use view child to actually get the instance of that child component. And then now here I'm going to use after view init, because the ng after view init is when I can actually do stuff with the view child annotation here. In the child component, I have a message, and then I have a message observable that I can update whenever I want to send that message. So basically, I can use the button here to invoke the send message function here, and that's just going to update the observable with whatever the message currently is. So then I can just subscribe to that observable here in my parent component with my reference to the child component. So it's just a way of showing you how to access information in the child component from the parent component, something that you can do using view child. So let's go and test that out. And there we go. We just communicated from the child component into the parent component by updating the observable message within the child component to which the parent component is subscribing, and then setting that to the received message, which is being displayed right there in that paragraph block. Okay, so now you know pretty much everything you need to know about communication between components, and you should be able to do this with your own components now. If you found this video helpful, please like it and subscribe to see more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.